We're talking about the theme for September, which is think outside that box. Think outside that box. And Bob. Oh, so good to have Bob holding forth for us, flying alone today. Thank you, Bob. All the way from Punta Gorda, yeah. And are you sure about that? If I may not know where I'm going and I'm not lost, but I'm exploring. I tried that this week. I just thought, hey, he's going to sing that song this Sunday, so if I was kerfluffled about something, I'd say, well, Karen Jean, just stop. I'm not lost. I'm not confused. I'm just exploring. And, the truth is that there was a part of me that said, oh, don't kid yourself. You're lost. You're confused. We're human. We don't always just go, oh, happy thought, yes. But I played with it, and I love it. I really love it, because when we're in the unknown, to reframe it changes the whole process, doesn't it? Changes the whole experience. And so that's what we've been doing all month long, talking about thinking outside the box. That's been our theme this month. And we've been talking about unplugging from the box, creating outside the box. And a couple of weeks ago, as a matter of fact, we did talk about exploring outside the box. And you can get all caught up on this by listening to our podcasts, and they're at our website for free. And also now there's a link in our newsletter where you can just click on that and go to the podcast of the previous Sunday. So, yeah, we can feel we're so lost outside that box. But to experience the real beauty and power of the possibilities that are there for us outside our in-the-box thinking, when we get outside there, we just have to recognize we're not lost. We're, as the song said, we're exploring. So I invite you to try that this week. Now, it occurred to me that I could get outside the box with you today a little bit. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to invite you to do the whole message instead of me. Well, not exactly. Not exactly. That would be a big leap, wouldn't it? But I'm going to ask for your help. What I'd like, because actually, I thought about it. You don't need me to tell you how important it is to think outside the box. You probably don't even need me to tell you how to do that. And what do we say every Sunday? I'm here to discover what I already know. So I'm going to tap into that with a very simple thing. I would just like to ask you to tell me in just a couple of words, what do we mean by the box? What are the qualities in that box that keep us stuck? And you can speak personally or just in general, but just a few. What do you think? What is that box, and what is it about it that keeps us so stuck? Pardon me, Jim? It's comfortable. Harvey? Oh, it's comfortable. Okay, we got that. Comfortable. Past experience, so we can draw on that and say, well, I know from that, that's what's going to be. Who else? Familiarity. You better raise your hand so I can hear you, so I don't get everybody at once. Yes. Conformity, absolutely. Nicole? Familiarity. Fear. Our favorite, maybe. Miss anything? There are lots of things. Joseph. Yep. If it was done that way before, we can do it that way again. Jim? Yes, it is do we have to know that it's self-imposed? Well, that brings me to, thank you. Maybe next week we'll do something even more robust with you. You're smart people. You know what we're already going to say. It is predictable. It's familiar. All those things you said, and it's habitual. That's another thing. It's a habit of just kind of, we get these little ruts in our thinking, that just always take us to those things that you shared. Place where we think we know everything in that box. It's pretty much, we're pretty sure of our information and our practices and our history. So we kind of know everything. And then we get outside the box, we don't know anything. We feel that way. It's unfamiliar territory. And it's no wonder, because outside the box, it's a new territory, and it can be terrifying and disturbing, or it can be exhilarating. And my experience is it goes back and forth. How about you? When you're trying something new, pushing your edges, sometimes it's real exciting, especially maybe at the beginning, and then you start thinking, well, what am I thinking here? What am I doing? And then it gets a little disturbing. So it's both ways. Now, I've shared with you each Sunday this month what inspired this for me, and I keep repeating it each Sunday this month because it's such a great little concise tool I want you to remember and take with you. And it is this, that I heard a minister recently talking about Raymond Charles Barker, who is one of our early, lived in our lifetime actually until just a few years ago, New Thought minister, teacher, very powerful, very forthright man, and also very no-nonsense. And when he would get into those places of, I don't know what I'm going to do, or this is a huge problem, or I'm confused, or whatever, all lack and limitation, he would sit himself down in his chair. Anybody remember what he would declare? You need a bigger idea. Barker, you need a bigger idea. Thank you. That's it. Take that with you. It is full of guidance as you say, okay, I don't know what that bigger idea is yet, but I'm open to a bigger idea. What he was talking about is get outside the box. Getting outside that little box of limiting ideas. So keep that in mind, whatever you may be facing, whether it's a little thing or a big thing. Because everything that happens in the physical world starts first with an idea, doesn't it? Starts in an idea. So if I'm daunted by whatever's in front of me, I need to remember to go back and get a bigger idea. Now, you might be outside that box voluntarily, and sometimes we find ourselves pushed outside the box. Doesn't matter. Either way, whatever we're talking about all this month about being outside the box, the principles apply. So today, I'm going to give you 5 reminders, because we talked about it being unplugged, exploring, creating outside the box, and today is living outside the box. How can I sustain this dwelling place, this place of thinking outside the box? I'm going to give you 5 suggestions, and I will say, probably again in our humanity, we're going to go inside and outside the box as we go along, just like creating any new habit. But hopefully, as we practice these 5 things, they will create new ruts in our thinking, so that it becomes new habits, new ways of truly living and sustaining our existence outside the little limiting place that we seem to create for ourselves. So the first one, and this is actually kind of a paradox, is because to get outside the box, it's an inside job. It's about really your thinking. So you don't have to go anywhere to get outside the box. It's kind of a relief, isn't it? In a way, you don't have to take a trip, take a geographical cure, do anything like that, change your outfit, change your spouse, change your house. Just change your thinking. And change your perspective, change your choices. There are a lot of ways you change your thinking to get outside that box. But doing it from in here. So it's an inside job. That's the first thing to remember. So as you're going along through the week and you're saying, I need to get outside the box of whatever's got me cornered, say, wait a minute. I'm going to start here with what I'm thinking. All right, and so here's how Ernest Holmes put it. I just love Ernest, the architect of our philosophy. For those of you who may be new to Ernest Holmes, my mind is open to new ideas. In fact, divine mind in me is inexhaustible. There's no weary or monotonous action in spirit. It is forever new and vibrant, fresh with new ideas. And he continues, I know that I am continuously receiving new impressions from life, new and better and fuller ways of living. I let the newness and the freshness and the originality of Spirit permeate my entire consciousness, my entire thought process. So I'll say it again. Living outside the box begins as an inside job. You don't have to go anywhere. You start in your mind by changing your perspective by making new choices. And there's great news. You can start right here this morning, right where you are. You can do a 180 about whatever you might be thinking. If there's something that's really been bugging you or weighing you down, you could even change your thinking by doing a 180. For example, saying, instead of, oh, this is so hard, I'll never figure it out, say, this is easy. I know there's an answer. I feel so terrible. Well, I feel pretty good. In other words, we're talking about our possibilities. You may not feel that in the moment, but you can change your thinking by stating what you want and as a form of possibility. So here we're going to do a little exercise. Harry and Jim are going to give you a handout, and we're going to read it. I'm going to read it and have you follow along with me. So you don't have to... you can read along out loud if you want to, or you can just listen. Today was the absolute worst day ever, so don't try to convince me that there's something good in every day. When you take a closer look, this world is a pretty troubled place. And even if some goodness does shine through once in a while, satisfaction and happiness don't last. And it's not true that it's all in the mind and heart, because we know true happiness can be obtained only if one's surroundings are good. It's not true that good exists. I'm sure you can agree that my outer circumstance creates my attitude, and it's all beyond my control, because my outer there we go. I went off on a tangent there. I'm sure you can agree that my outer circumstance creates my attitude. It's all beyond my control, and you'll never in a million years hear me say that today was a good day. How's that for positive thinking? Now, we're going to read it from the bottom up. Today was a good day, and you'll never in a million years hear me say that it's all beyond my control. My attitude creates my outer circumstance. I'm sure you can agree that it's not true that good exists only if one's surroundings are good. True happiness can be obtained because we know it's all in the mind and heart. And it's not true that satisfaction and happiness don't last. Some goodness does shine through once in a while. And even if this world is a pretty troubled place, when you take a closer look, there's something good in every day. So don't try to convince me that today was the absolute worst day ever. Look what you just did. Turned it all around. You did a 180. That's a great way to play with getting outside that box. You know, Emma Curtis Hopkins, whom you hear me quote a great deal, early New Thought, teacher of teachers, brilliant woman, way ahead of her time. And right now I'm in a class that's about one of her books. And the facilitator said, note how many times Emma says, look up, look up, look up. She doesn't say, stare at your problem. She doesn't even say, think a happy thought. She just says, look up. And what she's saying is, look at the bigger idea. Now, the facilitator of the class said, try this. Physically, try looking down. Think about whatever's on your mind, maybe bothering you. Try physically just looking down. She said, and then try looking up with that same thing in mind, and see how there's a subtle shift in how you experience whatever it is that's going on. Now, it may be subtle, and the real point is, again, raise your thinking. Look at something bigger bigger idea. Look up. I remember back in the day when I used to be a jogger. How many of you used to go jogging? And then my husband and I used to call it plogging after a while. We were more like, a little slower at it. And there were a lot of hills where we lived at the time. And it was hard. You'd see that hill coming, and I'd, like that. And somehow one day it dawned on me, why don't I look up above the hill? And do you know, maybe this is elementary and you all who have run or walked know this, but it made it so much easier just to look up above the hill. It was like my feet were much lighter. I rest my case. So that's just one way. So we're going to change our thinking to get outside the box and do a 180, look up, shift your perspective. The second thing for living outside the box is realize there is more than meets the eye. There is more than meets the eye. This material world is so seductive. The five senses are so seductive. We always, and that's just our culture, our way of being. This is how we make our decisions, is based on the material view of things, on what the five senses are telling us. And the truth is, if you get outside the box and realize there's more than meets the eye, and that's where the real action is. You hear this if you're in any Science of Mind classes, or you hear us talk about this every Sunday. That's where the real creative action is in what you cannot see. Judge Thomas Troward, who was a great influence on Dr. Ernest Holmes, talked about it. Ernest Holmes talked about it, the creative process that is always 24/7, an impulse within every one of us as expressions of God, as creations of the one, the creative one. We have that too. The same creative energy and impulse created the universe. We have that. And it is contingent, and this is the important thing I loved when I read this years and years ago in Troward and Holmes. That process is contingent on nothing that has material space-time parameters, period. It just creates. There's more than meets the eye. It is not contingent on anything you can see, anything you're experiencing with your five senses. So as you practice living outside the box, don't be distracted, or notice when you are. Let's start with notice when you are being distracted by those material parameters, space-time parameters. When you're making what you're wanting to do, be, have, experience contingent on something, regroup. Don't be distracted by that, because those are all limitations, and those are bringing you right back inside the box. Get outside that box and realize, as you're going through your day, I know what I see, I know what I feel, but there's more than meets the eye. Third thing about living outside the box. Principle is not bound by precedent. Now, we had a couple of you that suggested that inside the box is based on, well, I know what I did before, and so I'm going to go ahead and do it again, or base my actions either on what I did or didn't do, but I'm referring to precedent. Ernest Holmes, Thomas Troward, all the great New Thought writers, teachers remind us over and over, principle. What's principle? The way God works, the way the creative process works in, as, and through us. By whatever name you want to call it, that same energy, it doesn't even know about precedent, let alone being held back by precedent. What is precedent? Anything that was done, thought, experienced, even 5 minutes ago, 10 years ago, a week ago, a month ago. Earlier in your childhood, you might say, well, that's the way we've always done it. Or that happened to me, so I don't see how I can ever change. Precedent. Catch yourself when you're thinking and when that's your reference point, and say, wait a minute. God doesn't even know about precedent, in that God is not held back by it. So why should I hold myself back by it? Anything is possible. All things are possible, the scriptures tell us, and that has to be in that realm of Principle is not bound by precedent. Dr. Holmes said it this way. He said about precedent, he said, perhaps this seems too good to be true. Get this now. He said, now he was back in the 50s, so this is his example. He said, remember that the first steam-driven ship to cross the ocean carried in her cabin a book carefully explaining just why it was that a boat could not be driven by steam. Hello. Principle is not bound by, and of course we know we've gone way back past that by now. All right, so you got your 3 reminders so far. It starts in your mind to start living outside the box. There's more than meets the eye. Principle is not bound by precedent. The 4th thing is be willing to experiment and make mistakes. It's not about perfectionism. It may be, I think in its imperfection it's perfect, but it's not about perfectionism. Like one author wrote, she said, forget about perfect. She said, I think perfectionism is just fear in fancy shoes and a mink coat, pretending to be elegant, when actually it's just terrified. Perfectionism. It's so, again, very compelling in our being conscientious and wanting to be good at what we're doing. We get caught up in perfectionism. And that's inside the box. That's so constricting. Mitch Horowitz, who writes in Science of Mind magazine every month, said he found some little sticky notes around the house that his mother-in-law had written for herself. And I love this one. Perfect is good, done is better. Perfect is good, but done is better. Not about perfectionism. Get outside that box. Explore, create. You and I are going to make mistakes. As Emerson said, do not be too timid and too squeamish about your actions, because all life is an experiment. It's all an experiment anyway. And Emerson said that in the early 1900s. Hasn't changed. All right, and the 5th thing, the final thing, practice, daily spiritual vitamin for living outside the box, has to do with OPO. OPO. Other people's opinions. Don't we love those? Come on. I wonder what they thought of what I said. I wonder what they thought of what I go home every Sunday afternoon and I go through the whole thing and I think, I wonder if I said the best thing in the right way. I wonder what they, come on. I'm human. I try to get past that. But it's a human thing. Whatever we're doing, wherever we are on our journey, other people's opinions, they're around. Now the question is, are we going to let those constrict who we are and what we are and how we express? Certainly they can keep us inside the box. Oh my goodness. It can start way back with our parents' opinion of us. It still may be a kind of a tape that's playing in the back of our mind, all the way up to current day. Ask yourself, am I worried about what people are going to think? Am I buying into other people's opinions? Conformity. Someone mentioned conformity. That's what I'm talking about. Here's the deal. You are a one-of-a-kind, unique individual created with a built-in mandate to be who you are in all of your originality, warts and all. You and me. There's no one else like us. We hear this, we almost get kind of like numb to it, but the truth is, remember that when you're caught up in the box of other people's opinions. Say, wait a minute. I'm here to express who I am. Remember we saying God is holding me? Well, God created you to be exactly who you are, and therefore God's got your back. When you step out and express who you are as you are in your own uniqueness, that you got the whole power of the universe behind you, because you're in the flow of that creativity of being who you are, being a one-of-a-kind original. I love the way Ernest Holmes put it. He said, the Spirit has set the stamp of individuality upon itself and called it you. There's a song that Bob's going to sing in a little while that has a line in it, and you know you've heard this: dance as if nobody's watching. And of course, I love this. I guess I saw it on Facebook. Dance as if nobody's watching, because they're not. They're all looking at their phones. I mean, that may help if you want to say, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to be who I am, and it doesn't matter because nobody's watching anyway. But the idea is to be who we are as though no one were watching. So there you have it, 5 reminders for living, for developing that habit of living outside the box. These are your spiritual vitamins to take every day. Start with your thinking. There's more than meets the eye. Principle is not bound by precedent. It's not about perfectionism. And don't be distracted by OPO, other people's opinions. Let's just get outside that box of limiting beliefs and tired old not enough limiting habits, and unplug and explore and create and discover what a great life. What a great life there is right outside that box. So it is. Animals, an apology, grace, something for what we have done to them. So he hauled his beautiful piano, and at one point it was a spinet, and then he got a baby grand piano later. Outside, outdoors, out in the field. If you've ever seen movies or pictures of an animal sanctuary, it's just very, brush, and there they are. And he started playing music. And he said the animals loved it, particularly the ones who couldn't see. And he said, here's one example. He said, each time I played music for this one elephant, whether it was my flute or the piano, there was the same reaction every time. The elephant would stand for a while, perfectly still, and then he would curl his trunk and hold it in his mouth until the piece was over, no matter how long I played. And I saw it in the video. It was kind of amazing to see these elephants either moving around or swaying, and they were very peaceful. But when the music started, something magical happened. He started filming it. He put it on YouTube to raise funds, just hoping it would get the word out, to raise funds for the sanctuary. And it went viral. And there were so many hits that the documentary was made. And it is called Playing Music, or Music for Blind Elephants. Outside the box. I mean, when I saw that headline, immediately I thought, what? Now, I know I love elephants and I appreciate so much about them. But a guy with a grand piano in the middle of a sanctuary playing, and these animals just loved it. So you see, thinking outside the box may be something huge like these examples I've given you, or it might be some, as I said, little thing, take a different route to work, some little different approach to what you're facing this week. So how are you going to do this? Well, that could be a whole seminar, of course, but I was thinking about it, and basically it's this. Sit. S-I-T. Sit. Surrender, imagine, and trust. Surrender, all you have to do, I love what Holmes said, develop a good-natured flexibility about it. When I say surrender, I'm not saying anything, like give up all your earthly goods and go to an ashram. No. He said, relax, just relax. Go do something fun. Don't be staring at it. Stop paddling and start floating. Do something relaxing. And say yes to life, as the Eddie Watkins Jr. song says. What are we going to create today? The universe is ready to play. That's surrender. That's being in that place where that idea that's been tapping you on the shoulder or trying to will come to you. You're available to it. The second thing then is, of course, imagine, and my goodness, we heard it in that beautiful song by Bob, imagine, perfect, pure imagination. And the song by the Beatles, of course, invites us always to a bigger idea, imagine. And Albert Einstein said something to the effect that imagination is far more important than intellect. Holmes said it this way. He said, it's not enough merely to say there's one mind and that mind is God's mind. We must add, and that mind is my mind now. There's one mind, that mind is God's mind, and that mind is my mind now. And he said, and then when you do that, you're completing the thought, making it possible to loose the divine intelligence through your imagination. And he continues to say, the imagination plays a vital role if we wish to live creatively. And he follows it by saying we should couple our imagination with trust. So there we have sit, surrender, S, surrender, I, imagine, T, trust. We sang it in that chant. God is holding me. God is holding me. In a little while, you're going to hear Bob sing a song by Eddie Watkins Jr. called When You Believe. It's believing and trusting. And I want to close it with this quote from David Alexander, Reverend David Alexander, one of our ministers, who said it this way, and why wouldn't we trust this? The same intelligence that created the universe also created you and is in a state of perpetual recreation through the activity of your thoughts. Trust. So to create outside the box is not a big, rigorous challenge. It's really about getting that bigger idea. So surrender, be available to it. Imagine, let it tap you on the shoulder, and trust. So whatever you're facing this week, whether it's big or small, let's agree that we're going to sit and we're going to create outside the box. Namaste.